You want to land that job you've been dreaming about, but you don't know what's the best way of spending your time. It's the age-old question: should you grind LeetCode or build personal projects? Let's go through the different phases of a developer's journey and discuss which one should be your priority. Phase 1. Noob Level. At this stage, you might have gone through 1 or 2 courses teaching programming, and you've maybe learned about the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you have no idea how to apply them in a real-world project. Obviously, this is not the time to start preparing for interviews by learning data structures and algorithms, because you are in no way employable, especially in this market. If you're at this level, your focus should be solely on learning and building projects. When I say learning, I don't mean passively watching the tutorials, but actually applying this knowledge by following and building along. It's totally fine to go through the cookie cutter projects first, like the calculators, the to-do lists, and the weather apps. Your priority should be to write as many lines of code as possible. And of course, try to understand them. Your code is definitely going to be trash, but don't worry about it. So, why am I saying this? Well, a teacher decided once to run an interesting experiment on a pottery class. The class was divided into 2 groups. The first group would be graded on the quality of their best pot, while the second group would be simply graded on the quantity of pots produced. So, if you were in the first group and you wanted an A in that class, you would work the whole semester to craft the perfect looking pot. While in the second group, you would just produce as many pots as possible. You would assume that the first group would make better pots, right? Wrong. It turns out the second group was the one who produced the best and highest quality pots, because they were busy experimenting and learning from their mistakes. Moral of the story is that quantity matters more than quality, at least in the beginning. Do not allow perfectionism to block you from writing more code. Try to create a wide variety of projects where you learn multiple different things. It doesn't matter if your code is bad, because practice makes perfect. So learn how to write code, how to use APIs, how to display data in a nice format. The programming language really doesn't matter. Just get coding. Phase number 2. The beginner level. At this stage, you already have a bunch of beginner level projects under your belt. So you got all of the calculators, the to-do lists, and the weather apps. The truth is, having those types of cookie cutter projects is simply not going to pass. Especially not in 2024. That's totally fine, because you use them as learning experience, not as fillers to your resume. Now is the time to gather all of that knowledge and all of your learnings to build something bigger and something that has a potential user base. The best scenario is that you already have a good idea for a personal project, maybe even something that you're passionate about, because you'll actually get the drive to build it. I know it's easier said than done, but I would highly recommend building something that solves a real actual problem that you personally have or that a group of people has. The ultimate goal is to have impact that you can convey on a resume. This is what will differentiate you from the masses. Everyone and their mom has a to-do list with 0 users. Now imagine your application actually gets users. You'll have so much to talk about in an interview. How did you find the users? How did you scale up the application? What kind of issues you ran into? How did you deploy the application? And so on. And that is how you deliver impact and you land a job in a crowded market. Who knows, this project might even become the next multi-million-dollar startup. You will learn what you need along the way. Stop relying on tutorials to guide you everywhere you need to go, because you simply won't have them in real-world scenarios, be it at your job or elsewhere. Learn to read documentation to solve all the mini problems that you're going to have. Use ChatGPT as your mentor to guide you through the project. It's not a must, but try building your project with a tech stack that is actually in demand, because it will help you in the following phase of your developer journey. I mean, you can certainly use PHP if you want, but try something that is more in demand, be it TypeScript with Next.js, Python with Django, or Java with Spring Boot. You could even go with Rust or Golang if you want that performance and scalability. On the front end, try sticking with the big frameworks: React, Angular, and Vue. Or just don't go with framework and use HTMX. In truth, those are all minor details. Pick whatever you want and build an application that solves a real problem and that has a potential user base. Phase number 3, Employable Level. At this stage, you should have a very good looking portfolio. You would have all the smaller projects from phase 1 and the 1 or 2 bigger projects from phase 2. Hopefully you've managed to get some users on the 1 or 2 bigger projects that you've built. If not, that's totally fine. You'll just have to find a different way of conveying impact of building such a project on your resume. Your skills and projects should now make you somewhat employable. So it's now time to start the application grind. Apply anywhere and everywhere. Hit up recruiters on LinkedIn, cold message smaller companies, do whatever is needed to get your foot in the door. But there is a gap between getting an interview and getting an offer. And that gap is your knowledge of data structures and algorithms. It is now time to take that algorithms course you've been procrastinating on, and it's time to start LeetCoding. I recommend starting with LeetCode 150, which is linked in the description below. So now a new question arises. Should you completely stop building your projects and focus 100% of your time on LeetCode? Well, it highly depends on the position you're aiming for. In general, the bigger or more prestigious the company is, the more likely you are to be faced with a LeetCode style interview, because they have to find a way to filter people out of the thousands and thousands of applications that they get. It's unfortunate, I know. But LeetCode interviews are the best solution at the moment, because it shows that the candidate has a certain level of coding competency and that the candidate knows how to solve problems. But there is one differentiating factor. Bigger companies can afford to train their entry-level engineers on a new tech stack, but startups cannot. In fact, in big tech, some companies like Meta even have their own proprietary tech stack, which means you cannot learn it outside of the job. On the other hand, startups often use cutting-edge tech stacks, because they want to be fast, and their agility is not limited by the company size. They also often get less applicants, which means they are less likely to ask LeetCode style questions. Of course, there are exceptions, but startups mostly want people who are going to be able to deliver value from the get-go. They don't want to spend time and energy training you. In that case, you could argue that if you're aiming to work for a startup, doing LeetCode is pointless. You know what? There might be some truth to that statement, but luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So don't slack off on your DSA skills just because you think that a startup won't ask you LeetCode style questions. To summarize, in this phase, if you're aiming for a big tech or a larger company, focus 100% of your energy on LeetCode prep. On the other hand, if you're aiming at startups, I would recommend spending 80% of your time on LeetCode and the remaining 20% building projects, because they are more likely to give you a take-home exam or ask you questions related to your chosen tech stack. So it's better to keep those practical coding skills fresh. If you currently don't have a full-time job, you could do something like grinding LeetCode during the week and doing projects during the weekend. It's a nice split. In conclusion, should you focus on grinding LeetCode or building personal projects? Well, if I can summarize it in one sentence, it would be focus on projects until you start getting interviews. Then switch it out completely and focus 100% of your energy on interview preparation. If you want to code but you have no idea where to start, check out this video where I give you the complete roadmap to go from zero to hero in web development. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.